we need to have a talk about phrasal verbs. Okay, so phrasal verbs can be very confusing, they can be very annoying, but they're very important to learn because we use them quite often, especially when speaking. Now, today I want to look at some phrasal verbs that these can be very confusing because their meaning is similar. Nevertheless, there are some slight differences which I want to teach you, and this is really going to help with your comprehension and your overall English fluency. So all of that is coming right up. Hey everyone, my name is Wes from interactiveenglishvideos.com, the channel that's all about helping you practice and improve your English skills. And today we're talking about phrasal verbs and, well, we're going to be talking about why some of them are so confusing. So let's just go ahead and start with these two phrasal verbs right here, burn up and burn down. Now, when I first started teaching English and, I was having to learn a lot about the English language. And one of the things that I came across was just trying to show how crazy the English language could be. And somebody was asking a question and they said, how is it possible that a house can burn down at the same time it's burning up? That just doesn't make any sense. But it's true, that can happen, because if we have this sentence and somebody says, oh my God, my house is burning down. All right, it means the same thing, and somebody could say, oh my God, my house is burning up. So both of these phrasal verbs mean that something is destroyed by fire. And in the example that I just gave you, you could use either phrasal verb. You could say, my house is burning down, or my house is burning up. Either one of them, it's okay, they mean the same thing. But there is a slight difference between these two phrasal verbs, because if you say that something is burning down, what that makes me think of is some type of structure, like a home or a building or a bridge. And when it burns down, that structure is just destroyed, and often it may just collapse. If we're talking about something that burns up, it makes me think of something that is perhaps smaller, like an individual item. Not always, because you could say that a home is burning up, but I think you will typically use this with smaller individual items, paper, a book, or perhaps photo albums. Let's use that as an example. So if you have this home and your home is burning down, inside the home, maybe you have some photo albums. It's a smaller item, and if it's destroyed by the fire, then you would say, my photo albums burned up in the fire. They were destroyed by the fire, but another word that I want to give you to help you probably better understand it would be that it was consumed by this fire. I think that word may help you make a distinction between burn down and burn up. So if something burns up, it's really consumed. You could also use the phrasal verb when you get rid of energy. When you consume energy, you can burn up calories. And the other thing that I would say about burn up, I think there is a level of intensity that this is happening right in front of you. It's intense, it's really hot, it's getting hotter and hotter. And in that case, think of the same way if somebody has a fever, they might say, wow, your forehead is burning up. You're really burning up. It's intense, it's getting hot. And that is another way in which you could use this phrasal verb. So in my original example of saying that my house is burning down or my house is burning up, I think they are interchangeable. You could use either one. But I think it's because you are talking about something that is happening right at that moment. You are watching this structure getting destroyed by the fire. My house is burning down. You are watching the home getting consumed, and it's very intense. My house is burning up. If we are going to talk about this in the past, and it's already happened, I think in that case, most people would use burn down. And you could say, last year, my home burned down. All right. You're probably not going to use burn up if you're talking about something that's larger like a home. You may use it if you are looking at it at that moment and you see that the fire is consuming it. It's very intense. You could say, oh no, my house is burning up. So again, even though these phrasal verbs have a very similar meaning, there are some slight differences between the two. Now let's look at the phrasal verbs walk up and walk down. So let me give you an example. Perhaps you are looking for a restaurant and you ask somebody on the street, hey, do you know where this restaurant is? And they say, oh, it's just right over there. Just walk down the street and you'll see it. Or maybe they say, just walk up the street and you'll see it. In this case, both are correct. You can use either one because walk down and walk up, it means that you are just walking to some place. I would say that there can be some subtle differences because you can take geography into consideration. So for example, if a person is going to be walking uphill, then I'm more likely to use walk up. Just walk up the street and you'll see it. If the person's going to be walking downhill, then I'm probably going to use down. Just walk down the street and you'll see it. And if it's flat, well, then you can use either one. I would say that I think that in spoken English, people are more likely going to use walk down. Now, one way we can check this is using a great resource like Google's Ngram Viewer, which pretty much shows you how common different words and phrases are. And you can compare the two. So I can compare walk up and walk down, and when I looked it up, lo and behold, I saw that their usage is very similar. One is not that much more common than the other. And then I was thinking, wait, maybe, am I wrong? Is it just me that I would use walk down and a lot of other people would use walk up? Perhaps that is the case, but we can look at it a little closer in depth because if you use walk up, it can also mean something that's a little different. So walk up can mean to walk to a person or place with a level of confidence, that you are feeling very confident, you have something you want to say, and you might walk right up to some person or you walk up to some place. Let me give you some examples. I could say, she walked up to her boss and said, I quit. All right. She walked up to her boss. She was very confident and really had something important to say. Another example would be, he walked up to her and asked her out on a date. Again, in that situation, you are walking to someone, but there really is a level of confidence that you have when you are going to this person or this place. So when I went back to Google Ngram Viewer, I was a little more specific with my phrase, and I put in walk down the street and walk up the street. And yes, in that case, you can see that walk down the street is more common than walk up the street. And this also applies to drive. If you want to say drive up or drive down. Perhaps you're looking for a grocery store and you ask somebody and they say, oh, it's just drive down the road and you'll see it in about 10 minutes. Or just drive up the road and you'll see it in 10 minutes. Again, they're interchangeable. They mean the same thing. You are driving to some place. But I think it also applies if somebody's going to be driving uphill, you could use drive up. If they're driving downhill, drive down. And if it's flat, either one. But once again, I think drive down is going to be used more often in spoken English. Now let's look at these phrasal verbs, take off and lift off. So I could say the helicopter is taking off, or the helicopter is lifting off. Both of them are correct, and both of them kind of mean the same thing in this case. But these phrasal verbs do have a bit of a difference. So, for example, take off refers to an aircraft or a bird or an insect that leaves the ground and begins to fly. Lift off refers to the action of some aircraft or spacecraft that is leaving the ground. And typically with liftoff, I kind of think of going straight up. You are going straight up from a particular point. So you could say that a rocket could lift off the ground. Or a helicopter could lift off the ground. A hot air balloon could lift off the ground. A drone could lift off the ground. So if we're talking about takeoff, I could use takeoff with all of those as well. I could say the rocket took off, the helicopter took off, the hot air balloon, it also took off, even the drone, it took off. Because I can use takeoff with all of those as well as many more, if we're talking about, well, like birds, insects, and planes, takeoff is used much more often than lift off. The reason why I think somebody would use lift off would be if they just want to be a little more specific and precise whenever they're speaking or perhaps writing, and they want to say that this aircraft is leaving the ground and it's kind of moving straight up. So you think of a rocket, a helicopter, a hot air balloon, a drone. Those are things that can lift off, but they could also take off as well. I hope that you have a little bit of a better understanding about the differences between these phrasal verbs, even though in certain instances they are interchangeable and you could use either one. And finally, I hope that you learned something new. And if you did learn something new, please hit that like button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.